You're listening to the Future Tech Health Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Until I reached age 40, I never realized the obvious, that we all have medical issues, or we at least have a family member or close relation that has, or will have them in the future. Medicine and biological systems are the final frontier. Until we've conquered death, figured out how life began, cured cancer, and understood our purpose in the universe, there's a heck of a lot to talk about when it comes to our health. Future Tech Health means I'll be covering futuristic topics that are actually already in clinical trials, or even starting to appear on shelves or by prescription, or available for your own use. We dive deep into stem cells, CRISPR-Cas9, the science of sleep, epigenetics, medical testing, cancer, ketogenic diets, stem cells, aging, regenerative medicine, and more. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a serious medical problem. Remember, however, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and share it with friends. Thank you.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech and Future Tech Health podcasts. Today, I'm just going to be giving you some of my thoughts, what I've learned from doing 1,800 plus podcasts, and that's not an exaggeration. In October, it'll be 3 years for the Future Tech podcast, and the goal is to get to about 2,200 podcasts by that time. Well, fine, that's just a number, who cares? But people ask me actually quite often, why do you do this and what do you get from doing it? So I got a couple of stories for you. One will be directly related, one's a little bit ancillary. But first story is I tend to pick industries that have to do with near-term future technologies that I'm interested in and I think listeners will be interested in. Things that can seem futuristic to some people, like AI or 3D printing, or quantum computing, stem cells, Bitcoin, that kind of stuff. That's what first got my interest going to do this podcast. So what I've noticed is that when I go into an industry, it takes me a while to find my feet. If you've listened to the podcast I've done in any given industry, you'll hear at first that I probably don't ask very good questions, and I ask generic type stuff at the beginning. But as I do the podcasts and I get, through 10, 20, 30 of them, I really start to get a handle on a given industry. I learn the lingo. I'm able to ask better questions, and I can hear it from guests. Oh, good question, or oh, I haven't thought about that. So I hear that more and more as I get into an industry. And what happens is once I get to, and not every industry I've done this for, but once I get to the 100 interview mark and beyond, I really start to get a good idea of where all the players are in an industry, who's doing what. It's as if I have a 10,000 foot or 30,000 foot view and I can look down upon all the people in an industry, or some of the people in the industry, but see where they're going. Oh, these companies are going in this direction. These companies are focusing on this, etc. So that's one insight I've gotten. Another one is that, and I've spoken about this once before, in any industry I see that 95% of the people, they do good enough to have their credentials and to do a decent job. And then about 4% go beyond that and they try to be really good at what they do. And then you get to the 1% that's left, and those are the true experts. Those are the ones where they tell me things and I say, wow, I never heard about this stuff before, or that's crazy. They're just operating on another level, literally. These are the top people. And it takes me, I've noticed, between 30 to 100 interviews in a given industry to find these experts. And I love it when I do. And I can usually hear within 5 or 10 minutes of talking to them, I'm like, whoa, I found this person. They're one of the experts. Great. So that's one thing I've noticed from doing these podcasts. A lot of the information I've gotten, I've used to help myself health-wise. I've used to help my family. I've been able to let friends and family know about some of the things I've discovered. And I've been able to make connections between peoples and industries. I spoke to one lady that is trying to use DNA to make nanostructures, nanomachines, and then a day later, literally, I spoke to a guy that's trying to do the same thing, but instead of with DNA, with inorganic molecules. So I connected them. They may work together, they may not, who knows, but I've been able to do that by going deep into these industries. I've noticed that some of the largest companies that I've dealt with, I tend to get less information from, unfortunately, because they have to be careful about what they say, which is understandable. I've noticed that some people in the industry that are the true experts may not be the best marketers of what they do. So unfortunately, even though they have amazing knowledge, they're kind of more in the backwaters and not in the forefront as I think they should be. So these are some of the things I've noticed. I've gotten a lot of intelligence about a lot of industries, and a point of pride actually is when someone in the industry says, "Oh, are you a doctor? Are you a lawyer? Are you a this or that?" And I say, "No, I'm none of those things." But I sound like one because I've interviewed so many people within a given industry, and that makes me feel good, for whatever it's worth. But another thing it's taught me is that no matter what industry you look at, let's say you want to learn something. I don't care what industry it is. Let's say you want to learn nuclear physics, okay? It may seem daunting to you, but I can tell you from my experience having done this many, many times is even if you know nothing about a given industry, talk to people in that industry, listen to podcasts in that industry, read books, etc. At first, you may have to look up every other word. At first, you may only understand 5% of what you read or see. But pretty quickly, if you keep at it, if you listen to 20, 30 podcasts, or if you do 20, 30 interviews, or you read 20, 30 books, you'll pick up the language and it'll start to make sense to you, and you'll start to really get into it. And you'll have this epiphany where you're understanding more and more and getting more insights, and eventually you'll become pretty good. So I don't care what your educational background is. I don't care what your ability is. Everyone, I believe, if they want to, they can get really knowledgeable and really good about anything. So don't think, I don't have a degree in physics, I'll never understand this. Or I just went to school for this 20 years ago, I don't remember any of it. Have faith. I've known it. I've been able to do it. Again, I don't have expertise in all these industries I'm interviewing at all. I get it, again, just by talking to people and reading and learning and thinking. So I just want to point that out to everyone listening, that you can learn anything, and don't let anyone tell you you can't. Don't let Don't limit yourself by self-talk, thinking, I'm just not cut out for this, or I can't understand the math, or whatever it is. You literally can learn anything. That's a big thing that I've learned. So this is some of the lessons I've gotten from podcasting. I've made a lot of friends. I've been able to collaborate and talk to all kinds of amazing people I never thought would speak to me. But because of this podcast platform, they've done so. I've gone to conferences based on some of the industries that I've interviewed. And again, I've made great friends, and I've just gotten a great appreciation for what's going on in the world. All the amazing things that people are thinking about and doing and experimenting with. And it's just incredible what people are doing. It's the thing I love doing most. It makes me super happy. And I hope that you as a listener are really enjoying the podcasts. You pick ones you like. If you want to go deeper, search for the other ones I've done in a given industry. And if you want to ask questions, actually I've never asked, and I apologize for that, but anyone that has questions, you can always email support@futuretechpodcast.com. If there's a guest you want, if there's a guest you want to refer, if you want to give feedback, go ahead and email us, and I'll try to personally respond to everything. And I'd love to hear from you. And thank you for listening.
You're listening to the Future Tech Health Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Until I reached age 40, I never realized the obvious, that we all have medical issues, or we at least have a family member or close relation that has, or will have them in the future. Medicine and biological systems are the final frontier. Until we've conquered death, figured out how life began, cured cancer, and understood our purpose in the universe, there's a heck of a lot to talk about when it comes to our health. Future Tech Health means I'll be covering futuristic topics that are actually already in clinical trials, or even starting to appear on shelves or by prescription, or available for your own use. We dive deep into stem cells, CRISPR-Cas9, the science of sleep, epigenetics, medical testing, cancer, ketogenic diets, stem cells, aging, regenerative medicine, and more. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a serious medical problem. Remember, however, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoy the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and share it with friends. Thank you.